Hello everyone and welcome to the Hockey Hub. I'm Brennan and today we've got some very exciting news. The NHL has officially announced its return to play on January 13th. Now, a lot of things that we announced is stuff that we already speculated upon, so a lot of this is information we kind of already knew or figured, but some of this is new information. But it is going to start on January 13th, and it is going to be a 56-game schedule. Now, they have released a lot of details, and this video is going to be talking about those details, so let's get right into what the schedule is kind of going to look like and some important dates for the upcoming NHL season. Now, training camps are going to be starting up very soon. On December 30th, training camps for the 7 teams that did not qualify for the play-in rounds in the NHL's return to play in the summer will begin their training camps. So this goes for the California teams, Ottawa, New Jersey, Buffalo. So yes, those teams are going to be able to open up their training camps on December 30th. This does give them a few more days to kind of get back into shape, since obviously they've been off for almost an entire year, close to 10 months, I believe. So I do think it is fair that those teams are given an extra few days to kind of get into game shape, and I think they're definitely going to need it. For the rest of the NHL, January 3rd is the start date for training camps, so it's not going to be a very long training camp. That's only a 10-day training camp, so definitely look to see some quick cuts, and probably a lot of teams are going to be practicing even before then in the regions that they are actually allowed to practice. So those are the dates for the training camps, and there is not going to be any exhibition games. There's going to be no preseason games, so I am expecting a rocky start to the year. I think a lot of teams are going to be kind of a bit out of shape and kind of out of tune with their playing abilities and just systems and everything. Even in the bubble and the return to play, we did see that each team got at least one exhibition game, but this season it's not the case, as the season is starting January 13th. April 12th is being targeted as the trade deadline. Now, I do think that this is a reasonable date to have the trade deadline on. It does feel like kind of soon, but this entire schedule is going to be very condensed. It is a shorter season, obviously, so it makes sense that the trade deadline feels a little premature, but when you look at the amount of games that will be left on the schedule, time come April 12th, it's probably going to make sense. May 8th is targeted as the end date to the regular season. Hopefully we actually see the end of the regular season this year, and I think that May 8th is actually a pretty good date to be done by. Considering that they're normally done at the very beginning of April, only having it pushed back a month, in all reality, isn't that bad, to be honest. It definitely allows the NHL time to look at next season, so the 2021-22 season, and hopefully that can have a more normal start date. But then I believe that July 15th is the last possible day of the Stanley Cup Finals. So if every series goes to a Game 7, that would be the last day that we would see any hockey being played. Then on July 21st, we would be getting the Seattle expansion draft. Now, obviously, this would not be very long after the conclusion to the NHL season, so the expansion draft would be coming up pretty quick, and that, it still gives GMs a week or so. Well, actually longer than that, since most teams are not going to be playing in the end or beginning of July. But so it does give GMs enough time to get prepared and choose who they want to leave exposed for the expansion draft. And then July 23rd and 24th is being targeted as the NHL entry draft. Now, obviously, this is about a full calendar month later than when it would normally be, but all things considered, it's not that bad. The entry draft this year is going to be a bit of a crapshoot since scouting is all over the place. I do think Owen Power is projected first overall pick, though. And then July 28th is going to be free agency. Normally that would be July 1st, aka Canada Day, but this year fans of the NHL are going to have to wait once again a little bit longer than they normally would. So all the contracts will expire on July 28th, so that is definitely going to be an interesting day, since there's a lot of big name free agents next offseason, such as Alex Ovechkin, Taylor Hall once again, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Gabriel Landeskog, and Dougie Hamilton. I do expect a lot of those guys to be signed by that time, but I guess we'll see. Time flies, so July 28th will be here before we know it. Now, going into some of the minute but important details of how this season is going to work. Rosters are going to require to have 3 goaltenders on them, so teams are going to have to carry 3 goalies and a taxi squad as well. And I don't believe that the taxi squad actually affects the salary cap, so that is kind of a way for some teams in cap trouble like Vegas or Tampa Bay to kind of get around the salary cap a bit. But yes, they're definitely going to have more players, traveling with the team and practicing with the team, since obviously we are going to get some positive cases. Players are are going to have to sit out and miss time as a result of that, and injuries and whatnot, since those do happen more often in a condensed schedule. Players are allowed to opt out of this season as well, and if they do, they are not going to be making any of their salary, which I think is fair, and I do believe that teams have the option to push their contract back by 1 year. So let's take Tyler Toffoli of the Montreal Canadiens for an example. He just signed a 4-year contract, so if he decides to sit out this year, Montreal can tack another year onto that contract so that he still plays out that 4 years of that contract in Montreal unless they decide to trade him. I think that's fair for both player and teams. Obviously, we are going to see some players that choose to opt out due to underlying health issues, or their families potentially being compromised, or whatever the term is. But yeah, so I'm not going to hold any judgment against players for sitting out. Family comes first, health comes first, but I do think most players are going to play. They do have to make their money after all, and most players are probably looking forward to playing as well. As far as the playoffs goes, now the playoffs is going to look a little bit differently this year. So the top 4 teams of each division will make the playoffs, and 1 will play 4, 2 will play 3. And from each division, we will see kind of a winner of that division go on to the conference finals. Now there isn't going to be actual conferences this year, so I think they're just calling them Stanley Cup semifinals or whatever the term is. But yeah, so basically, since there is a Canadian division, that does mean that 1 Canadian team will be in round 3. So that is kind of exciting as a fan of the Canadian hockey teams, and I think this does give teams a good chance. And I do think that this is kind of a more simplistic way of doing the NHL playoffs as opposed to the wildcards. To be honest, I wouldn't mind if they kind of kept this around, but I don't see it. They're probably going to revert everything back to normal next season. So, and I do understand that the system, it does work, but for this season, obviously they got to change it up a bit. So the playoffs is going to look a little differently. As far as the divisions go, the divisions do look a lot differently this year, and that's kind of as a result of the Canadian division and to try and limit travel. So we do have the Canadian division, which comprises of the Calgary Flames, Edmonton Oilers, Montreal Canadiens, Ottawa Senators, Toronto Maple Leafs, Vancouver Canucks, and Winnipeg Jets. To me, that's easily the most exciting division. I really can't wait to see the games. The Battle of Alberta 10 times a year just sounds fantastic. There's going to be a lot of rivalries, a lot of heated games, and that goes for all the divisions. The other division is comprised of the 3 LA teams, or not LA teams, California teams, so the Los Angeles Kings, San Jose Sharks, Anaheim Ducks, but there's also the Arizona Coyotes, Minnesota Wild, and then the 3 powerhouses in Colorado, Vegas, and St. Louis. So that division is very top-heavy. Now, the other division as well is kind of a little bit top-heavy, but then the East division is kind of the division of death. Now, the Central Division is a little bit top-heavy to me. They do have Detroit and Florida and Chicago and Nashville. Those teams aren't necessarily looking like big contenders. Nashville is easily the best of that bunch, and I could definitely see them making it into the playoffs. But then for the top half, you've got the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Carolina Hurricanes, and then the Dallas Stars and Columbus Blue Jackets. So to me, that division actually seems pretty fun, especially since Dallas and Tampa are actually in the same division, which is like one of the first times, if not the first time, that the two Stanley Cup, the 2 teams that made it to the Stanley Cup final are in the same division. So that's going to be really exciting, and I'm definitely expecting a heated rivalry from them. But then looking at the East Division, you've got Buffalo and New Jersey, who I kind of feel bad for those fan bases because they are probably not going to be able to compete in this strong of a division when you've also got the Philadelphia Flyers, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Washington Capitals, the Boston Bruins, the New York Islanders, and the New York Rangers. To me, that's easily the hardest division. That's the division of death, and 2 really good teams are likely not going to make the playoffs as a result of that. I probably think the Rangers don't end up making it, whereas in the Metro and with the wild cards and everything, I think they stood a pretty good chance. But only time's going to tell. I will be getting into doing division previews coming up soon. I'm going to leave that for a later video. But for now, I'm just looking at what the actual divisions are and how that's going to shake out. So that kind of does it for today's video. There was a lot to unpackage here, and it's really exciting news that the NHL is finally coming back. We are going to see a schedule for each team coming in the next few days, so it's going to be really interesting to see how that's going to work. In the Canadian division, some teams are going to play each other 9 or 10 times, and all the other divisions, teams are going to play each other 8 times. So we're going to see really good hockey, really good rivalries, and as far as where they're going to play, they haven't exactly announced that yet. They do say that the plan is to play in all 31 home arenas, but that isn't going to be possible possible since San Jose has to play in Arizona. I do believe Montreal is not able to play at the Bell Center just yet, and apparently British Columbia is really not a fan of the NHL's plan, so Vancouver might end up being moved to Alberta or somewhere else as well. So I do expect to see teams playing in more neutral sites, and I'm sure those fan bases might complain a little bit due to their, government rules and everything, but the NHL just has to find a way to make the season happen, and thankfully they've got a plan, it's happening, and I, for one, am very excited for what this season holds. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate all the support on the channel of lately. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys later. Bye for now.